2026. This is the Student Services Committee meeting for the School District of Waukesha. Can I please have it confirmed that the meeting was properly posted?
Yes, it was.
Very good. And then we will move into our opportunity for public comment. We do have one speaker this evening. Because there are 6 speakers or less, speakers will be notified at 3 minutes, but allowed up to 5 minutes to complete their comments. We expect all speakers to honor our time limit, refrain from using any inappropriate language, and be respectful in their comments. Speakers who do not meet these expectations may be prohibited from speaking at future board or committee meetings. Speakers are here to address the board and not the audience. The school board and this committee does not endorse any comments made by the members of the community here tonight. We'd like to remind our community members of the impact of their words on others and that our children are watching. We commit to communicating to you in respectful and productive ways and ask that you do the same. We also expect that the audience will be respectful of the speaker and of the board and refrain from responding with verbal comments, cheering, applause, or other behavior that would detract from the meeting. Please note that no obstructions can be created between the board and the audience. Visual aids cannot be used, and the area behind the speaker and the podium will be clear during public comment. Also, in order to respect our speakers and meeting participants, please silence your cell phones. Our speaker tonight is Mr. Paul Reese.
Good evening. Tonight, I want to talk about child abuse that you have on the agenda and the mandatory reporting of child abuse. But what is child abuse? Do we know it when we see it? And are we supposed to say something when we see it? You know, we would like to think so, but sometimes it becomes politically pertinent that we don't. That it becomes acceptable forms of child abuse. We have the things, the latest craze of addictomy or chopidectomy, those type of things that we abuse children. And that becomes acceptable to some people, and therefore it becomes difficult to tackle. This summer, we all were purview to see someone come in here, and there was a child forced to wear a mask and has been forced since COVID. And it's not been addressed. It's not been addressed by anyone. That person's parents need to be talked to with a counselor, that their child does not have to live through life fearing that they're going to die because someone breathes on them or breathes next to them. That is a form of child abuse. And so it's easy to talk about rape and the physical beatings that some kids take because it's politically pertinent right now. It's easy to talk about. But when you see it in front of you, and you know it's abuse, and you know it's screwing up that child, but politically it's uneasy to address, so you choose not to. You know, it's what I've seen here. You know, it's why isn't this being addressed? Why isn't the parent sitting down with a counselor to get through their head that they're not going to die tomorrow? And if the world comes to an end tomorrow, then who cares anyways? You know? It's just, you can't live a life of fear. And a kid who's abused lives a life of fear. And there's no difference there. And so I hope you would look at what you're talking about tonight when it comes to abuse and start addressing some of the things that lay in front of you. You know, things that are politically pertinent today, you know, easy to get by and just acceptable, you know, or things that we look back in history and we're ashamed of. You know, like a lobotomy. It was common to people have their kids lobotomized at one time. It's shameful that people did that. And to sit back and have a child in your schools who's being treated like this and ostracized and treated differently like this, it's equally shameful. So anyways, thanks.
All right. Thank you. We are moving into our section of action items on tonight's agenda. The first action item that we have is the approval of the minutes from the February 3rd, 2026 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Kozlowski, seconded by Ms. Gren. Any further comments, discussion? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Our second action item tonight is the discussion and action around the School District of Elmbrook 66.03 contract service selections for the 2026 and 2027 school year. So I'll hand that off to Mr. Pat.
Thank you, Mr. Harlan. So the contract that we have with the School District of Elmbrook falls underneath State Statute 66.0301, which allows us to be part of the Waukesha County Special Education Cooperative, or WCSEC. Schools in Waukesha County get together. There's a multitude of things that we support each other with. For this particular contract, it's a low-incident disability where specifically for our district, we contract with Elmbrook for visibility, for vision services, as well as, which we have checked on the back, as well as our deaf and hard of hearing, certain DHH components, specifically an audiologist, which is a specialty job position. So what you have in front of you is you have the contract itself that X's those things out. It gives you the district or the county districts that are part of that cooperative. You also have estimates, so you can see the cost estimates that they provide us on a yearly basis for these services. And then you have an invoice and kind of a billing component in front of you as well. I just want to point out on the contract that on the top of the contract, School District of Elmbrook says 2026 through 2028, and that is the School District of Elmbrook Board approved. So they will continue these services through 2028. And when you get into the first paragraph of the contract, we, on an annual basis, pay annually for these services. And so every year we'll get an annual component. And so just wanted to point that out and provide answers to any questions that you have regarding this. These services that they provide are critical for us and for our students, which are required to have them by law.
Thank you. Are there any questions from Mr. Pat on this? Go ahead.
Can you just confirm, we've been using Elmbrook for years, correct? This has been pretty much a recurring annual agreement that we do?
Correct. Yes, it has.
The invoice that's attached in here is the 2024-2025 budget with the 2023-2024 true-up. That is a credit. Is this just our portion?
Yeah, so the true-up is the credit component, so our, you can see our portion for last year was 79,146 in the lower right-hand side after the true-up was provided. So we pay for, we pay the services and the invoices, and so what, I'm not an expert on these, and so what I was told was that we are applied a credit afterward that will come back to us, and then they will balance the budget. Our budgets will be balanced finally after that credit is provided, because we have that annual contract.
So I can ask Darren about this too, but I'm just curious of the timing of the invoicing. Is this estimate at the start of the year based on what we know and then trued up at the end of the year?
Correct. And so they want that contract by April 1st, which is why we're here now, and then in preparation for next year.
Got it. No, thank you.
Can you speak to, is there any change in costs from last year? Have they, I guess, has there been an increase? All of our prices are increasing. I guess, could you speak to what that may look like?
Yes, I don't have last year's estimates, so I can't answer that with the sheet. When I asked the question, I was told that they're virtually the same, that there's not if there is an increase, it's not anything significant.
Any other? Yep, go ahead.
I would motion to approve the School District of Elmbrook 6603 contract service selections for the 2026-27 school year.
Second.
All right, motion by Ms. Kozlowski and seconded by Mr. Brooks. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 5-0. We're moving into our third action item, which is policy 1213, 3213, 4213, student supervision and welfare. Mr. Pat, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Harlan. The reason we're here tonight and the reason there are three policies together, generally I don't do certain policies. We're kind of tasked within our administrative team, our cabinet team, to take certain policy numbers and levels that go with us. But this policy language is almost exactly the same throughout each of these, and it really is around mandatory reporting. So the reason that we're here is because, as required by Wisconsin Act 27, we have to update and utilize specific language that is provided to us, specifically around parents be notified of sexual misconduct reports by 5 p.m. the same day or noon the next day when the report is received on the school day after the end of regularly scheduled instruction or on a day that is not a school day by noon of the next calendar day. So these upgrades are mandated, so it's very clear in our policy that we are in compliance with this. So when we dive into these policies and you take a look at them in collaborating on what we wanted to add, there was some optional language for us to add or to not add, and there's a significant portion that was added. So if you look at some of the required notification, when we're looking at 12, 13, student supervision and welfare, and then you get 2 pages later to appropriate staff and student relationships, and specifically under boundary invasions B, and you start to go into 1 through 23 on what that can constitute. There's a lot of information in there, and we want there to be as much information that is similar in as many places as possible. So when you look at the policy series, 1,000 is obviously administration. When you're looking at the 3,000 series, you're looking at professional staff. And then when you're looking at the 5,000 series, or 4,000, sorry, you're looking at support staff. And so different groups, when they go to their section, we want them to see common language around mandatory reporting because they're all mandatory reporters and have to have an understanding of what that means. And as they go through this, we want there to, again, be a very clear indication of what they need to do as they continue to read. So I'll go through the 12-13 policy. When you take a look, it just has some language that was there before that is X'd out on page 2. You can see that is taken out, and that is common among each of the policies where there's a couple different aspects to that. This one has K on the bottom that is also crossed off. But when you get into the additions we added, so like I said on page 3, and you move to the end of the policy, page 505, you will see the non-green portion on the last page, which is pursuant to the laws of the state and board policy 8462, which we'll also reference. It just goes through a sentence about child abuse and neglect. When you go through the other policies that we add this exact same language, that last line has more language because this is for administration and the other lines are the other policies are for our staff, support staff. And so it talks about ensuring that they work with the administration. So that's why that is omitted here, because this is for us and our staff are required to work with the administration through their policies and through the language that is in here. So that is a general overview of kind of our conversation around these policies, us wanting to have this language that is robust and in there that has clear definitions for our staff members to say, okay, yes, this is something that I want to ensure that I report, and I am very clear on that, so our kids are, everything is being vetted and investigated properly.
Thank you for that update and overview. Are there any, go ahead, Mr. Brooks.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate, especially in the section that kind of lays out the boundary violations, how thorough it is, obviously, and it acknowledges in the policy we can't possibly touch on every single violation, but it's good to be thorough. And I think, so obviously this is kind of in reference to the mandatory notification for instances of sexual misconduct on school grounds, but I think this is a good start too, because there's legislation that has been introduced and passed the legislature, and we'll see what the governor does, but requiring school districts to have clear policies on appropriate communications between staff and student and training on grooming and violation, like boundary violations. So I think this gives us a really good foundation that if that legislation is signed into law, we have something already sound that we can kind of adapt to that. And this is a really good first step to kind of lay out what the expectations are to keep our kids safe.
Any other comments? Go ahead, Ms. Kozlowski.
So with all of these new changes and just highlighting this, can you talk to me about how this is going to be pushed out to the staff? I would expect this to be in handbooks, and because it's new, just a recognition. So what are we doing from that standpoint to alert them to this policy change?
So all of our staff sign their staff handbook on an annual basis that they have gone through the policies. So the changes in these policies will be sent out to all of our staff that they are updated. So that is our common practice for when we make a change to policies. And on an annual basis, our staff will be trained and re-upped on mandatory reporting and what that means. So that happens at a school level on an annual basis to ensure that everybody is clear and understanding that, so.
No, that's perfect, and I think my question was much more on, the significance of some of these changes and just clarifying that out to make sure that they're seeing it now versus the annual piece. Good, thank you.
Mr. Brooks?
So just to clarify, did you say that we do mandatory reporting training for all of our staff every year?
Yes, we do, and it's done at the school level for our staff, so at the beginning of their training.
Yeah, because I think technically it's like 6 months upon new hire, then you have to renew it every 5 years. But I do think it's a good thing to just get in the practice of doing it every year so that people don't slip through the cracks. I know with the grooming legislation that's going through, one of the pieces in the grooming bill is that we would add grooming to the things that you have to include in mandatory reporting. And so our initial worry was, well, if you're a teacher who already has your training and you don't have to get it renewed for another 5 years, what's going to happen? Like, are you getting that training on how to identify grooming? And so I'm glad to hear that we're doing it every year just to make sure that we're covering our bases.
Yeah, and I want to be clear that there's specific training that you were talking about, and then there's, when I say training, I guess the reminder of our student services staff in front of all of our staffs at each one of our schools, going through what it means to be a mandatory reporter, referencing specific policy, and then talking about it's always best to come and report it to one of us. So.
Great, thank you.
Very good. Any other comments? All right, so if there is no other discussion, I'd be looking for a motion on action regarding these policies.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion by Ms. Koenig and seconded by Mr. Brooks. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes 5-0. We are moving into our final action item, which is policy 8462, child abuse and neglect. Mr. Pats?
Yeah, so the previous policies reference this policy in regards to their connection. And taking a look at the second page of this, it talks about the additional required reporting, and then this policy addresses the three policies that you just asked questions about and that we went through in regards to student supervision and welfare. So it just makes that connection through the operations component around child abuse and references those policies as we move forward. So you can see they added threats of violence, took out a couple of little things, and then took off the final paragraph on the second page. But it's fairly straight up as far as why this is included tonight as its connection to the other policies.
Very good. Any discussion, questions on this? All right, if not, then I would be looking for a motion on an action item.
I move to approve revisions to policy 8462, child abuse and neglect as presented.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Kozlowski, seconded by Mr. Brooks. Any final discussion? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right. Motion passes 5-0. We're moving into our discussion and information items this evening. The first is student-athlete random drug testing. Mr. Pat, floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. So I just wanted to bring this topic up tonight. It's been referenced a couple of times by some board members, and I just wanted to, I guess, bring some information tonight for a discussion and see where we go from there. So in regards to drug testing, did some research to see what local area districts do when it comes to that. So really, it's random drug testing for athletics is where it kind of where it starts. And when we took a look around at what other districts did, it looked like it was a Neola-type policy that existed. And so when we checked with our representative from Neola, they actually do not have a template, and they do not have a template for this policy. So these were policy numbers that were created by individual districts, and this policy language was created by individual districts. So what is provided to you are three local districts who have similar but different policies. You have the Arrowhead School District, which all this is for public consumption that any of you can find. And then you have Pewaukee, and then you have the School District of Mukwonago. So in taking a look at these policies, they do require random drug testing. And again, this is just our informational session, so I don't know that much about it other than what you see in front of you for discussion. And it does talk for these schools that they also put that into if you want to drive and have a parking pass and have access to their school on school property parking lot, that you also are subject to random drug testing if you're going to be a driver, again, on school property. And so when I took a look at what they reference, so specifically Arrowhead on their Wisconsin state statute, 961.001. It's pretty simple, it's fairly vague, but it says declaration of intent. The legislature finds that the abuse of controlled substances constitutes a serious problem for society. As a partial solution, these laws regulating controlled substances have been enacted with penalties. The legislature, recognizing a need for differentiation among those who would violate these laws, makes this declaration of legislative intent. So this policy and Mukwonago's policy reference that statute as a basis for random drug testing, and that is that statute in its entirety. They also both reference Supreme Court ruling, Board of Education of Individual School District number 92. That was an Oklahoma case where the Supreme Court voted 5-4 to uphold the school district's policy around random drug testing for specific students. And again, I just saw a briefing and a very quick summary of that. And so that's what's referenced as well. So I just want to provide that information for you and note that school districts around us are doing this and are involved in this practice, and open it up for any questions you have to the best of my ability, but for any discussion you have and what that potential next steps can be.
Very good. Thank you for that update. We do have another member of the board who joined us for this portion of the discussion. So, Mr. Wad.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Harland. Yeah, I decided to join today. I was the one who had suggested this as an agenda topic for consideration, and so I thought I would attend tonight. I appreciate you pulling together some of these policies. Very interesting. There were certain things that I wasn't aware that school districts were attaching to drug testing. For example, parking. That was something I wasn't aware of. I guess I'd like to start more in the historical realm, I guess. Do we know, has SDW ever had a drug testing policy in place for activities, parking, athletics? Do we know?
Not to my knowledge. This is year 16 or 17 for me in the district.
Okay.
I don't even have that knowledge, right?
Right.
But I do not recall any time ever having any policy around random drug testing.
Yeah, it's striking to me as I look around, and there's obviously three policies here of districts that are right next to us, right? I think it was, Arrowhead, Mukwonago, and Pewaukee.
I'm also aware of, I think Muskego and Oconomowoc also have these policies in place. I don't know about, say, Elmbrook or maybe some of the districts that are a little bit further away, like Menominee Falls, but it makes me curious as to why this is something that SDW has chosen not to put in place, or if there's been some sort of rationale, or it just hasn't been considered before. I don't know, Dr. Siebert, if this is something that's ever crossed your plate since you came here, or?
No, we've talked about it in my previous district. I think part of the reason Neola doesn't have a policy on it either is there is some ups and downs to this kind of testing, right? And you see in these policies that if a student is found to be under the influence, either parking or or they're an athlete, they face consequences in their sport. But since you can't prove where it happened,
Right.
it doesn't necessarily equate to school disciplinary consequences. And I think there have been some districts that just haven't wanted to touch it, essentially. I don't know that that's us at all.
Right.
And so, but it hasn't come up in my tenure.
So I guess I'll just kind of lay out why I believe that this is an important topic and why I think this district ought to consider embracing this as a policy. I have been struck by a lot of the reading that I've been doing in recent months about the very serious effects that cannabis use in particular can have on those who use it in adolescent years. There was a recent study put out by the Journal of American Medical Association, over 463,000 subjects, and I'll just read kind of their findings. Of these aged 13 to 17 years old who were universally screened for cannabis use, past year cannabis use, and they define that as just once in the previous year, past year cannabis use was associated with a significantly increased risk of incident psychotic, bipolar, depressive, and anxiety disorders by age 26 years. A study found that adolescent cannabis use is associated with an increased risk of psychiatric disorders in adolescence and young adulthood, highlighting the importance of early prevention efforts, effective public health messaging, and policy development to limit youth exposure as cannabis legislation expands. And that's the other piece of this that has been a concern of mine for some time, even before I knew of the devastating effects this has on young users as they progress into adulthood, is as cannabis use is legalized and the message continues to be, well, this is harmless. The fact of the matter is, at least for adolescents, it is definitely not harmless. And my concern is that when the messaging is that of it's harmless, there's less concern among our youth to use it. Now, obviously, we have policies in place that deal with students who are using it, and we have programs in place to try to educate. But I wonder if a policy that we put in place that we attach to athletics, activities, and parking passes might go a long way towards A, educating, and B, deterring its use. I'm not interested in punishing students who use it. I'm interested in identifying them, deterring them, or trying to get them help. And the way that we do that is by identifying who those students are. Just some of the basic numbers I've run, these are approximations, but based on what I've seen, if we were to attach a random drug test requirement for participation in any of our school-sponsored activities, athletics, or to parking permits, we could get to about 75% of our student population. And if we were to test once a month randomly, a pool of 15% of those eligible to be tested monthly, we would likely get, on average, about 75% of those students to have to test at least once in a school year. If we're serious, and as a district, we've already stated that we're serious about helping our youth with addiction issues and recovery, because we've gotten a grant for a recovery school. If we're serious about this, we will address it to our larger population. And I would say that if you're a student who wishes to participate in activities, which is a privilege at this school district, then you should be willing to sign on to, if you're going to park on our campus, if you're going to participate in football, volleyball, drama, forensics, this is something that should come with the territory. And it's, again, and I appreciate, Dr. Siebert, the concerns that school districts have that this doesn't prove use on campus. That's not what I'm concerned about. My concern is not whether or not students are using on campus, whatever the case might be. My concern is, are our students sufficiently aware of the risks? Is there a consequence, potentially? Through this testing program, can we identify these potential students? Can we get them help and potentially curb the use? I think the statistic I read, and don't quote me on this, but I believe I read that 1 in 4 high school seniors use cannabis at least once a year. And I think the number that use it more than that is close to that. Given its potential dangers, that is frightening to me. And I think that we as a school district should seriously consider looking at a policy that is fair, that's preventative, that's random, and that is designed that is designed not to punish. I mean, obviously, we have athletic codes, and there have to be some consequences around those. We have those already. We have rules in our athletic codes around the use of any number of illicit substances, and I'm not saying that we should test exclusively for cannabis, but that is, I think, the most widely used by adolescents today. But that, this is really designed to deter, educate, and promote healthy choices and identify those who may need help.
Very good. Any other comments? Ms. Kozlowski?
Thank you for bringing this forward. This is obviously a big topic. As a child who grew up with a mom who was a drug and alcohol rehab counselor for this actual district, I'm very familiar. Now, time has changed. The substance, I guess we could say, has changed and altered over the course. But I do agree that we need to have a policy. And I think Mr. Wad brought up some excellent points as it comes to the perfect liaison as this has into offering a recovery program. And there's obviously a lot of different things ongoing in the statistics that we can easily see that say we know our students are using it. We know that there's a risk for the addiction level, especially when you're talking about THC at levels that is far more damaging, especially when we see that it's happening at middle school. There needs to be a point that we are doing what we can to do that. But specific to the policy that we're getting on here, I want to draw a piece that I think that as our students sign a code of conduct, and this is part of it. Now, you have some kids that are going to be extremely open and understanding that I'm signing this code of conduct, which says I will not use or I will not play. And I want to highlight that any time that we do and enforce or build a policy, it's the accountability and the execution that means that upon the violation, what does that mean if we're not saying that we can pinpoint where the usage was, so it wasn't done on school property. The fact is that that lingers in your system and it means that you're using. There should be a penalty of that, and I want to make sure that I understand there's going to be a cost associated with this. So who is going to be executing the random drug tests? Where are these random drug tests done? Do we require parental authorization to drug test children? And then my last piece gets into the accountability for the coaches, and I think candidly, we have coaches today who know that their players are using and they don't do a darn thing about it, and that infuriates me. So if we are not doing our job to hold our students accountable to high standards and high expectations, and that there are consequences for poor choices, I have a problem. And that also needs to be a directive piece, is building out a robust policy that takes it wing to wing, not only addressing that we are going to do it, the how we're going to do it, what the consequences are, how this rolls over, but how do we deal with district staff that we are expecting to be accountable to help our students. And that is a responsibility. A failure to report, failure to do that because you want your best players to play the game has to be addressed as part of this too. And so I think this is a policy that we want. And in reviewing the policies, I think Pewaukee's is probably as lengthy as it, but I want this wing-to-wing robust. I'm not sure about the student parking. I guess I'd have to look at that. That seems a bit much on different levels, but I agree with the concept of it. We need to identify who the population of our student is that's using. We need to make sure that we're educating them, supporting them, lifting them up, so that these consequences of drug use, recreational or not, do not linger with them into their future.
Any other comments on this discussion item? Mr. Webb?
Yeah, if I could, I think an important piece of this too is understanding the cost, right? And how we'll fund it. My understanding is that there are health organizations in this part of the state that have contracts with school districts around us. I believe one that I heard about, I don't know this for a fact, but I believe Oconomowoc and Muskego have contracts. I don't know about Arrowhead or Pewaukee, but I would like to get some sort of an idea of what the cost is, whether this is something that we would fund exclusively out of district funds. Would it be a cost that we would share with the athletes, with the permit holders, whatever directions we were to choose to go with it? And I'm very interested as well in ensuring that, to Ms. Kozlowski's point, in this, I think the term she used was wing-to-wing policy, we are clear in how we are going to ensure that it is fairly and consistently administered, randomly, and not geared in a way that would undermine the trust of any of our families that specific students or families are being singled out for testing while others are not. So I think that is a critical component of it as well.
Very good. All right. So we will continue that discussion, I'm sure, in the future.
So what does that look like? Your next steps?
So at next steps, I'm feeling as though there's a consensus to pursue a potential board policy to enact this. So obviously, Mr. Wada, I don't want to volunteer you, but as you you were the one who I identified, and would you assist in potentially drafting?
I'd be happy to in the limited time I have remaining on the board, but yes, absolutely.
Very good.
Yeah, I can do some research on some of the questions in regards to cost. I think that's a logical next step, so I will bring some information back. We'll go from there.
Yeah.
Very good. Our second discussion and information item tonight is enrollment and
Thomas, I just have one more comment on that.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, so there are a lot of pieces of this, as Ms. Kozlowski pointed out to this, and I'm certainly happy to also volunteer to assist Mr. Wad in that layout, if he would so like me to, but I think having more than one person looking at this would be a good idea.
Absolutely. I think that'd be great.
Okay?
Thank you.
I also had a question. I know that we have 3 very good samples of the policies. Was it mentioned anywhere, Mr. Watt, anyone, how many other districts around us do have something, or are these just the 3? I think someone mentioned Muskego possibly. Do we know how many others around us actually do have a policy already?
I do not have the exact number, but there are others.
There are.
These were just 3 that,
Okay.
for our discussion,
That was
I
my
brought
only,
in.
so there are others then? that-
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? All right, so we will move into our second discussion and information item, which is enrollment and school choice update. So, Mr. Pat? floor is
Yeah,
yours.
for our final item for tonight, just provided where our school choice data fell for this year. Obviously, this was an anomaly for the number of school choice applicants, and we had 3 different tiers, and so just want to share with you what those numbers look like. So remember, Tier 1 and Tier 2 are individual students. Tier 1 that were at a specific school and due to boundaries redrawn, had a different boundary area home school, and they wanted to come back to the school that they have been attending. Tier 2 are siblings of those individuals, and those are, it's important for us to keep families together. And so we gave 100% of Tier 1 and Tier 2 requests to go to the schools they wanted to go to at elementary and middle. High school was not part of this, which is why they're blanked out. And if you move on to Tier 3, that is our traditional school choice, where any individual who for the first time applies for a different school who doesn't have a sibling there is considered for that. So when taking a look at elementary, you can see as you go across, there was 171 who filled out for Tier 3 to go to a different school from their home area school, 48 at the middle school, and 219 at the high school. So when you look and continue to go across for elementary, there was a total of 740 requests for all tiers. We approved, again, 100% of Tier 1 and Tier 2, and 709 out of 740 overall, or 96% of our elementary students got to go where they wanted to go. A reminder that choice is based on grade level capacity at different buildings and another multitude of factors where students' behavior, academics, attendance, sometimes specific plans they may have come into play. So in any given year, that's a high number for students to be able to receive school choice at the Tier 3 level. Middle school, obviously we have limited choices with 2 middle schools. We had 117 total requests and 102 total approvals at 87% for middle school. And then at high school, 219 total requests and 194 approved, again, 89%. Taking a look at the district in its entirety, 93% of our students got to go where they wanted to go for next school year, which is 1,005 students that we gave the option for them to, and families to go where they preferred to go. So just want to share that with everyone. And again, in any given year, in my research, we were around between 92 and 95% school choice-wise overall, so as far as granted requests. So any questions I can answer for you on that?
Ms. Kozlowski.
Thank you. I think this tells just another great story that we've seen as we've gone through the Optimizing Our Future plan. And a lot of the story that we've been able to tell as we've walked through early onset, understanding what capacity looked like, understanding where we knew that there was going to be a high call out for those that boundaries changed, but we're in an element, and we can see it, it's in the elementary. And so to say that for all of those students that were boundary to a different school and wanted to stay in that school, we've accommodated 100% of them. And even the overall picture, the Tier 3, really for those that fell off that weren't, fits at a higher percentage than our historical percentages of being able to operate in school choice. It's the story that we knew, and, watching as all of the data plays out, I think this is just another sign that shows that we do have a very good handle on where our kids are, where we're trying to get to, and what we're looking at, that we can fit and do what we need to do best, which is educate our students. This is a nice number just to see.
Yeah, just echoing that, I can't thank you and your team enough for everything that went into just being able to accommodate all this. 100% placement rate for Tier 1 and Tier 2 is huge, but just still seeing the high numbers for Tier 3, really impressive. Speaking for myself, I know probably others have felt this too. When we started the Optimizing Our Future process, we knew the schools that were always on one of the lists for potential closures, they at least knew, okay, there's a possibility. One of our worries, or my worries at least, was always, what about these families who are in a school like Rose Glen, who all of a sudden, they haven't been on any list, they haven't really felt like they've needed to rally or fight for their school, and all of a sudden they get the letter in the mail that says, or the email that says, hey, your kid's going to another school now. The fact that we were able to accommodate all those families and make sure that if they want to keep their child in that home school, that they can do that is remarkable, and like Carrie said, just a testament to what we are able to do when we're focused on putting our students in the best position to succeed.
Anything? Yeah. All right. Yes, I would echo that. So I know that you and your team have been hard at work in all the individual schools as well. So just a thank you, and just another incredible story to tell. So very much appreciate that. We are into our other business for this evening, which is recommendations for future meetings. Are there any recommendations? All right. So with that, we will adjourn. I'm trying to find the date for the next meeting here. I wrote it. There it is. Our next meeting is May 5th. We are not meeting in April.
Correct. We've worked together to, Dr. Piasek and I, to try to avoid the 3 in a row meetings where we have the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And in doing that, we had moved student services and teaching and learning up a week into spring break, which was problematic. And then to move it back, we would have the 3 in a row also on election night. So we thought we will have F&F and policy on Monday the 6th. We'll have HR and the full board on April 8th. And then we will have more robust agendas of student services and T&L in May without an April meeting.
Correct. So we will see everyone back here in the board meeting in May. Thank you. Have a good night.